Hey guys, it's CS Joseph of csjoseph.life, and we are joined by the live studio audience today of like the patrons for CSJ, at least the patrons that actually received the ping for today's lecture, because we're like testing out a live lecture thing right now. And I put out the, without telling anyone, I put out the link, and it's like, oh, okay, hey, let's have people show up and hope for the best. Yes. And I actually see like on my screen over here, like a bunch of people like did actually show up. So that's kind of cool that the patrons are joining us this evening for this live lecture. And while it is a live lecture, I would also like to remind the audience this is season 22, episode 2, which is the cognitive transitions, which because it's season 22 is technically only available through email. So like if you're a patron and you get to watch this because like you're watching from like my other camera that I do like live streaming with and whatnot, guess what? Well, I guess it's pretty cool, guys, right? Because like, you know, you can do this and then you can ask me questions and whatnot immediately following for a few minutes and whatnot. But the point is, again, season 22, you can only get through email. So like if you're like an email person, good on you because you can see this and the patrons just happen to be able to watch it tonight because we randomly are doing a test and we're just doing this email lecture for that. So awesome. And because I absolutely love long intros, we're also joined by the beautiful Railgun, who's also joining us for our live studio audience, you know, and she's like being really smiley and smoking hot at the same time. So it works out for me. Pretty happy about that. And I passed sound check as well. So we're definitely getting there, although I could definitely need a light above the camera so that I can get the lighting fixed in here so my team is not completely constantly badgering me on a regular basis about my lighting. So anyway, on to the lecture. What are the cognitive transitions of an ESTP? The ESTP, aka the persuader, but according to the CSJ community and csjoseph.life, it is known as the Gladiator. And we're using the Gladiator because they literally gladiate with truth on a regular basis, trying to get people to realize their weaknesses or what strengths they actually have. The ESTP can reveal people's strengths, they can reveal people's weaknesses to help them make them stronger, or to provide additional encouragement in areas of their strengths so they can become better people as a result. Their interaction style is that they're direct, initiating control, which means they are a structure type. They're all about providing structure, but usually it's more like they exist to test structure. They're kind of the odd man out when it comes to the in-charge types because all the other in-charge types are J-types. And J-types, they really like taking control and having everything planned, but ESTPs and planning, well, it's not exactly a thing as much. As they get older, they can plan more, but usually that's not the case starting out right away. Not necessarily a bad thing. Other people can plan for them throughout that process. But they exist to test the structure. They're testing the structure of anything. That can be the structure of an organization, a structure of a movement, a mechanical structure like a bridge, or hey, I wonder if I could break this, or hey, what is going to happen if I do this, etc. Is it strong enough? And it's really verifying with TI parent if this thing is strong or weak enough, etc. as a result. And ultimately, then they can cognitive transition to the other four sides of their mind, which, they have ESTP, ego, and then they have INFJ, subconscious, and of course, ISTJ, unconscious, and ENFP, superego. And so we're also going to be talking about where those transitions go, and also oh, hey, by the way, as transitions happen, we have gateways as well, and their unique behaviors, and the process by which takes them through a positive or a negative transition, right? Which I don't have in my little mini outline here, but we'll just ignore that for a second. Anyway, so interaction styles, direct, initiating, control. They say what they mean what they say. They're short and to the point. They're just going to be like, hey, I'm going to choose my role in the conversation. If that means I'm very commanding or demanding, kind of you're going to have to get over yourself, and I'm just going to say it straight. It is what it is. And then they're very initiating. They like to go to other people instead of having to wait for other people to go to them, because sometimes it's like, hey, I need that instant gratification because I'm SE Hero, and I just need to get this information now, and I ain't going to waste any more time, if you know what I'm saying. But they're very control oriented, which means they're very focused on outcomes and getting really good outcomes. Outcomes are very important to ESTPs, And because outcomes are important, they can be pretty slow with certain things, but the difference is it increases their accuracy of completing tasks. So while outcome-focused, aka control types, can have higher accuracy and better completion rates of completing tasks, they end up completing less tasks over time, but the quality of tasks completed is actually higher than other people. And that's usually as a result of STP NFJ quadra, because STP NFJ quadra ends up actually gaining an actual understanding of the system that they're trying to manipulate or the physics they're trying to manipulate, whereas other people, it's more of a theoretical approach, whereas STP NFJ quadra is based on reality, whereas you would have SFJ NTP quadra, which is based on the theory. Same goes with STJ NFP quadra. Anytime you have introverted sensing, it's all about the theory or what they have experienced themselves, but it's not necessarily reality, because what they themselves have experienced, while it is very concrete and connected to reality, does not necessarily mean it's real. And we know this, for example, when people are picked out, like, oh, I witnessed a crime and like I'm an NFP, and when the officer just asked me immediately following, because there was like an officer around the corner and then like just showed up randomly as I watched this random chick like on the side of the road just come up to this 12-year-old and like throw him to the ground and like take his bicycle and throw it in the back of someone's truck, and then she took off running and the truck just took off, and then like the cop came by and it's like, hey, did you see what happened? I was like, yes, I did, except like I'm an NFP and I'm introverted sensing, and the policeman's asking me questions about like what happened like right then and there. And my memory, I just don't really have that great a short-term memory. And like when that happens, like if he's asked me the same questions like 2 weeks later, I'm gonna like tell him a completely different story, which makes me look not remotely credible in front of the law enforcement people, especially when I'm in front of them, at a lineup trying to pick out who's who. And maybe like if they have me do a lineup like 2 days later afterwards, I'd probably choose a different face. If they had me do a lineup like 2 weeks later before like I went to trial and whatnot, and there was like a witness and whatnot. But I mean, I just don't really know. I mean, I feel like it could be that guy, or I feel like it could be that guy. But because time just went by, it's all different. And I just don't really know. Okay, so this is why I maintain law enforcement, for example, should probably be aware of sensing functions when it comes in memory, when it comes to people involved with the crime. I mean, no wonder a long time ago you couldn't convict somebody without having a minimum of 2 witnesses to a crime when it came to a court of law. Nowadays that's not exactly how it works. But the point is that if you're going to actually look at testimony, you might want to consider things from a memory standpoint, because let me tell you, it's really different. And that story about like that woman throwing that 12-year-old kid to the ground and taking his bike, that actually happened because I actually witnessed that crime with an ESTJ. And that ESTJ, well, STJ NFP quadra, he couldn't exactly really give all of the details to the policeman, and he knew that about himself. And he just turned 50, and he looked at the officer of the law and said, I'd be happy to answer your questions. I just need a couple of days to think about it first. And I'm like, wow, hey, this guy knows himself. This is pretty cool. And that's exactly what happened. And when it came down to it, law enforcement was like, oh, hey, maybe like we'd like you guys to check out the lineup as you guys witnessed this crime. I was not chosen. He was chosen. He has a better introverted sensing and whatnot. And according to the police, he saw more than I did, even though technically that was not the case. He was just able to recall details in a more accurate manner than I was, and the officer picked up on that. Okay, fair enough. But, managing memory is super important. And when it comes to ESTPs, they live very much in the moment. They have a more accurate understanding of the real. Like, for example, I was driving Railgun, and she's an SE user, and then because she's an SE user, she has that high reaction time, and it's like, oh, I should probably slow down. There's a car. Everyone else is like, hit the brakes. And then she reacts to it immediately, where I'm just kind of like, casual, normalcy bias, introverted sensing land. Hey, yeah, I probably should slow down right now. Oh, the house has exploded. I'm just standing here while everything's burning around me. And Railgun's just like, ha! let's go solve this problem. So, okay, yeah, sure, fair enough. That makes a lot of sense. However, given the tactical nature of extroverted sensing, how it handles memory, how it lives in the moment, this can change things. When you're thinking about, okay, what really happened? What's the point? Bottom line is, if you're going to question somebody or ask someone to recall memory, if you know they're an extroverted sensor, do it immediately. Don't wait. If you wait longer, the story they're going to give you is going to be less accurate. Whereas with an introverted sensing person, don't ask them immediately. Give them a couple days, ask them later. You're going to get a more accurate testimony, right? So this is important when you're considering interaction styles because, control-based, you're going to get a better outcome, especially when it comes to memory recall, provided you ask them straight away. So not entirely relevant to this lecture, but just want to add that in there for whatever reason. Temperament-wise, freedom-based creators, they live in the moment. It's all about giving other people a good experience, having shared experiences with others. Freedom of choice is everything to do with freedom-based creator. And it's because new memories come in and they push the old memories out, and they're trying to keep all that new memory in their heads as long as possible. But they have a smaller hard drive than most people because of their low introverted sensing Nemesis right here. And which, by the way, I should probably actually get my red pen available for that here in a second and do that. But the point is that for introverted sensing, it takes a while for some of that new information to actually be written to the introverted sensing hard drive, but a lot of that information could be lost. So temperament-wise, consider that because when you're living in the moment, all SPs have that struggle, right? So they're very concrete. It's all focused on what is, and then they're very interest-based. Interest is important because whenever they look at a situation, it's like, okay, well, what can I get out of the situation? What can that person get out of the situation? They're very aware of what other people's agendas are, which is really interesting because if you compare that to a systematic NTP, INTPs, and ENTPs, while we have very high extrovert intuition and we are aware of the intentions of others, it's all from a filter or a frame of a system, which is why technically this makes ENFPs even shystier than ENTPs because ENFPs are not systematic. They're interest-based and they have expert intuition hero, which means that they're by default better at manipulation than ENTPs because ENTPs are very system-based and everything has to follow a system, even the people or the social systems within the people in their lives. It's just a requirement that they have, right? So definitely something to consider when you're considering the differences between the temperaments with looking at interest versus systematic. And we already talked about them being concrete. And wow, my memory's really bad right now. And the third component of the temperament that they are concrete, concrete, interest-based, and I'm really tired right now. So, what is it?
What are concrete, interest-based? We have really good short-term memory.
I don't know. Live lectures are fun.
Yeah, they are.
That's okay. So anyway, it'll pop in my head later, guys. It's all good. So anyway, functionally speaking, functions, orbits, focus. We talked about focus earlier on our CSJ conference, Ruby conference, but we'll get into that a little bit. But function-wise, we already talked about SE Hero. Today, our parents always focus on the truth. It's you can break it down to the questions they ask. So what are we doing right now, or what are they doing? Are they telling the truth, or am I telling the truth? What's the facts of the situation? How do these people feel? What are they valuing? What are they getting out of the situation? What do I want to do? Where's my choice? What's my personal choice? What do I remember about this? Or do I have enough experience? Or do I have a story to offer? If I don't have a story to offer, maybe I shouldn't talk about that, because if I don't have any stories to tell, how am I going to make these people comfortable or give them a good experience around me? If I don't have any experience, if I have not had the same experience myself, how can I do that to them? And then that's where I'm very worried about it. Are these people intelligent? Do they actually know what they're talking about? Are these statistics actually real? Or how do I feel about this? Don't know, don't care, not my problem. And expert intuition demon, hey, you want to play a game? Because extrovert intuition demon is literally Jigsaw from like the Saw films. I don't know if you guys knew that, but like it literally is. Whereas I'm like, hey, you want to know why I like to use a knife? So much more enjoyment. Whereas their extrovert intuition demon is like, hey, you want to play a game? You made the rules. It's your rules. Let's play by your rules. Yay! And it's like any demon is like, this is kind of getting like pretty scary right now. LOL. That could be like an issue. So anyway, so that's our cognitive functions. So how do transitions work? Transitions work within 3 ways. You have the gateways. So you have gateway 1. Then you have gateway 2. You have gateway 3. And you have gateway 4. So gateway functions: hero, inferior, nemesis, and demon. The 4 gateway functions of the mind. And each gateway leads into each of the corresponding sides of the mind. So the first gateway leads into the ego. The second gateway leads into the subconscious. The third gateway leads into the shadow. The fourth gateway leads into the superego. Very important. And like, I guess it almost got really bad and could have like came out like a swastika there for a second, but we don't need to talk about that. Anyway, the gateway functions. So the gateway into the ego is the first gateway. It's the hero function. You gain it by default. ESTPs have extroverted sensing hero, all about what other people are doing, all the way aware of other people's strengths and weaknesses, what they can do to make those people stronger. Same thing with structure as well as systems and testing all of that. Gateway 2 is fear of one's own willpower, fear of what one person wants. If one is able to conquer one's fear, they're able to access their INFJ subconscious. This is very important because remember, folks, a person gains happiness by developing their subconscious, and one gains maturity by developing one's unconscious. Why not? Happiness versus maturity. Yay. I mean, that's fantastic. And this is known as cognitive focus, when one person is more focused on one side of the mind than the other. My cognitive focus is shadow or unconscious. I am a shadow-focused ENTP, right? That's who I am. I'm a shadow-focused ENTP, so I kind of predominantly live in this side of the mind. Even though my ego is an ENTP, I'm INTJ-focused because that's my unconscious, and they end up behaving very INTJ-like, and this is why people like talking with famous people are very confused about me and they claim that I'm an ENTJ, when in reality the situation is I'm an ENTP with an INTJ focus, which means I have more NTJ properties attached to my ENTP ego. That's cognitive focus. Cognitive orbit is very important because guess what? What impacts the gateways and the ego impacts the gateways of the unconscious. And as people cognitive transition, they have different ways of behaving. And you can transition in one of 2 ways. You can have a positive transition and you can have a negative transition. Ooh, super complicated. Yes. So while that is super complicated, but not really, the point is that if you can master integration, master transitions between the different sides of your mind, you can gain for yourself a more healthy result. And a healthy transition is positive. We'll just put the word like, healthy right here. And then you have unhealthy right here, which is, for a negative transition. And unhealthy is like, so if I'm going to transition into my subconscious, I'm going to do it unhealthily. I'm being really insecure. It's all about pride. And like for an ESTP, that INFJ subconscious, they're just going to use all of their wisdom to absolutely destroy another person and make that person out to be as weak as possible, to the point of destroying whatever capability for performance that other person has, and basically eliminate them as competition. Hey, I feel insecure about my own capabilities, so I'm going to take away any opportunity with my INFJ subconscious to make you as least capable as possible so that you couldn't be a threat to my capability because I'm secure in my own skin, right? Because ESTPs, they're like, hey, I'm the alpha, I'm the strong one, I'm going to be the strong one, and then I need to look strong because of that. oh, this INFJ, they're stronger than me, or this other person, they're stronger than me. Well, I'm going to tear them down because that makes me look good. That means I'm the strong one around here. That's my reputation. That's my domain, etc. And this is why ESTPs, especially immature ESTPs, insecure ESTPs, are known as the schoolyard bully. They're too busy tearing down everybody else to prove their strength, when in reality it just exposes their insecurity as weak people. They're super mega weak when they do this, when they're in this cognitive transition, this unhealthy transition. Now, a healthy transition, we could talk about my ESTP mentor who laid down the foundation for the type grid and me understanding the science in the way that I do now. Well, he is an interesting fellow, Mr. Robert Bryant. And Mr. Bryant, when he introduced the type grid to me, he's like, being like, one subconscious, makes one happy, but subconscious manifests in different ways with various people. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, how it manifests in a healthy way for an ESTP is that they become that sage on the mountain, that important sage, that INFJ, which is awesome. And that INFJ really, instead of understanding like strength and utilizing strength as their biggest weapon or capability or performance, their greatest weapon, the reality situation is it's like they have this gift of knowledge. It becomes a gift of wisdom, and they're conferring that wisdom upon others. A healthy cognitive transition, when one is able to get over one's fear of their own willpower and actually understand exactly what it is what they want and exactly what it is what they're looking for, and in life or at their job or their career or a car they want to buy, it doesn't matter. They can do all of that. When NI inferior becomes NI aspirational, they're able to have that healthy transition to INFJ subconscious, and they're able to confer that wisdom upon others because wisdom is everything. And let me tell you, you can understand, you can spot an unhealthy ESTP based on how wise they are. Do you consider an ESTP a wise person or not? Yes or no? No? Well, they're underdeveloped. Because ESTPs, when they are very developed, especially in their unconscious, and they have NI aspirational, they're wise. They are straight up wise. They're actually wiser than most people. I mean, here's a great example, a great written example of an ESTP who is wise in their INFJ subconscious, and that is literally the book of James. Like literally the book of James in the Bible, like seriously, where James says, he who knows what good he ought to do, but does not do it, sins. Yeah, okay, so that makes sense. So wait a minute. Oftentimes, as was explained to me recently, extroverted feeling child of an ESTP, instead of hurting someone's feelings or because they want to be able to get the recognition or the credit of helping someone or making someone feel good, they choose to not say anything with their TI parent. They choose to be silent, which then allows evil to propagate. But then they get the recognition of being a good person because they didn't just challenge or be at risk of alienating this other person or correcting this other person. But no wonder James, the ESTP, said, if you know what good you ought to do but do not do it, you sin. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because the ESTP has to remember it's their responsibility that if they have their wisdom, if they have NI aspirational, and they're using that healthy gateway to get into that healthy INFJ subconscious mode, maybe they should have the balls to open their mouth and criticize people around them if they recognize that those people are being weak or irresponsible, and confer that wisdom upon those other people. It doesn't matter who they are. That is their responsibility. And if anyone knows what good they ought to do, but they do not do it, they sin. And it's no wonder a TI parent, of all people, are saying that. ESTPs, utilize your cognitive transitions appropriately. Seriously, use it appropriately. Because if you're not, guess what? You're actually making the world a worse place. And then your ISTJ's unconscious comes out, starting complaining about how bad everything is all the time, when it's supposed to be your job verifying everybody, fruit inspectors, hey, nice grapevine you got there, but you got a lot of dead leaves there. You might want to cut that away and take out the trash out of your life just so that, maybe the plant could actually grow instead of carrying all this dead weight with it all the way. Oh, but no, I can't say anything because every child will make you feel bad. Yeah, that's really healthy. No. That's not what you're supposed to be doing, ESTPs. You're supposed to be, here, I got a knife. I'm just going to cut it away. And then you can grow. Here, let me just get all the dead weight out of your life right now. Let me test the system of your life. Let me test the structural integrity of your life. Wait a minute. Structural integrity? Wait, ESTPs are structure types? They're structure types, right? Wait a minute. What's the virtue of the INFJ? Oh, it's integrity. Wait a minute. Structural integrity? Wait, it's all making sense now. See, that's the point. A healthy cognitive transition from an ESTP is all about structural integrity and improving the structural integrity of others and having integrity themselves. The thing is that ESTPs know a lot about integrity, especially because they understand from when they're wise with their subconscious how much more they're able to accomplish with other people. Because if you know what good you ought to do but do not do it, you sin. What are you doing? Stop wasting your time. Stop being irresponsible in that way. You have to be willing to put your relationships on the line. You have to be willing to test the structural integrity of the interactions and relationships of people that you have in your life in order for you, as an ESTP, to be successful. And also to fulfill your purpose, which is ultimately to become the sage on the mountain, the INFJ subconscious, and confer that wisdom upon others. Nice. Oh, but guess what? We have ISTJ subconscious, which is the third gateway. Gateway 3, the Nemesis function. So the unhealthy way is I'm really worried about my own experiences, and this leads to sensuality. There is an ESTP in my community. Okay, so funny story. I met him a while ago. I invited him to a private Discord of mine. He's just a really cool, interesting guy that he met. I think he's in Canada, or he's Canadian and whatnot. But he literally contacted me and he's like, hey, I'm watching as many movies on Netflix as I can because I think if I watch more movies, then I have more experience and then more people would like to be around me and like actually do things with me. And I'm like, bro, no, that's not remotely true. But I'm taking a lot of caffeine pills to be able to stay up long enough to be able to do it. And I'm like, yeah, that's effective. That's amazing. No, actually, it's not. This is a consistent issue that we see with ESTPs with their Nemesis function. They're worried that they do not have enough experience, and because they maintain that they lack experience, that then they are not able to give other people good experiences. This is actually a cognitive orbit. We haven't talked about cognitive orbit much, but this is actually a cognitive orbit between hero and nemesis. Cognitive orbits, in the same way that, because cognitive axis is like, you have the hero connected to the inferior, and the parent connected to the child, but a cognitive orbit is the hero connected to the nemesis, the parent connected to the critic, etc. Cognitive orbits, right? So from a cognitive orbit standpoint, we're looking at the nemesis. The nemesis is worried it doesn't have enough experience, and because it lacks experience, how can it, hypocritically speaking, give other people a good experience or a good shared experience with other people? But that's the problem. See, what the ESTP should do is stop comparing themselves to the experiences that other people have and realize that they're amazing tacticians, they're all about tactics, that they're amazing at improvisation. It doesn't matter, ESTPs, if you lack the experience. This is how you get yourself out of a negative cognitive transition and realize, because you're literally the best at improvising, that you're literally the best at being tactical with experted sensing hero and having the highest reaction time, the fastest reaction time, so like the lowest reaction time out of everybody, not the highest, lol, but the lowest reaction time out of everybody. Because you have that, ESTPs, that gives you the power to improvise, and improvising means you can end up creating amazing experiences as a freedom-based creator. That is your temperament, right? Because you're very interest-based, You know what you can get out of a situation. You understand what other people are looking for to get out of a situation. And you can construct an experiential agenda based off of that and realizing the concrete of what's around you. Okay, what is actually happening right now? Oh, okay, we have all of these choices. Let's go choose this. Or, hey, how do you feel about this? Or how do you feel about this? How do you feel about this? How do you feel about this? Because they're aware of what choices are available to them at that point in time. Hey, you want to do this with me? You should do this with me. Or let's go do this thing together, right? Kind of interesting how ESTPs like doing things together, yet they're independent and very pragmatic. And that pragmatism actually shows up into their improvisations. Oh, look, the other part of their temperament that I didn't talk about earlier, they are pragmatic, not affiliative. Affiliative people are interdependent and do the right thing. And you'd think because ESTPs like having shared experiences with others, they are interdependent. No, not necessarily, because at the end of the day, their freedom of choice with their NI inferior becoming NI aspirational, because they're trying to become that wise sage on the mountain, that INFJ subconscious, that because they have to have that freedom of choice in order to reach that wisdom, they have to be pragmatic in order to protect their inferior function. So while they end up creating interdependent experiences with their SE hero, it is at the service of the NI inferior for the pragmatic. This is why they're pragmatic, okay? When it comes to introverted sensing Nemesis, they look at themselves as like, well, I'm not good enough, because FE child has self-deprecating behavior through FI trickster when it's unhealthy, and they have that self-deprecating behavior. It's like, I'm not good enough to give this experience. I'm not good enough to make these people comfortable. I'm not good enough to give them such a memorable and create these amazing memories with these people that they will not abandon me, that they will stay to me, that they'll be loyal to me, that they will actually be true friends instead of fair-weathered friends, right? See, fair-weathered friends, that's a problem, especially for ESTPs. Actually, it's a problem for STP, NFJ Quadra. All four of those types actually struggle the most with fair-weathered friends. Although, as I found out recently, everyone has that problem. It's just STP, NFJ Quadra happens to be the quadra of the four types that actually take action about it faster than everybody else. When it comes to SFJ, NTP Quadra, we take action about it the least. And it's no wonder we find ourselves being taken advantage of consistently as a result. So, SI Nemesis, the third gateway, unhealthily, it ends up having sensual experiences, drugs, alcohol, sex, meaningless sex, doing the expedient thing instead of the meaningful thing, and they store up for themselves meaningless memories, meaningless experiences. Because they don't have enough faith in themselves, because SI Nemesis, SI is the faith function, right? One's faith in oneself. SE is looking for how much faith other people have within you. An SE user is like, hey, do you have faith in me? Because I've done all this for you. You should have faith in me. Why do you not have faith in me? Whereas introverted sensing is one's own faith in oneself, right? Introverted sensing, it's like, well, I'm worried, and because they're worried, they have that concern, they lack faith in themselves. The ESTPs, they lack faith in themselves. And because of that, they give themselves over to sensuality and have these sensual relationships with drugs, alcohol, sex, and various other bad behaviors. And they end up, because STP NFJ Quadra mirrors people, they end up mirroring the wrong people and becoming corrupted. And yet ESTPs understand, that they're supposed to have that integrity of that INFJ subconscious. But sometimes the ESTP is willing to trade their integrity for companionship, for their wolf pack, or for their status as the alpha. See, that's a problem. That's what happens when the unhealthy ISTJ is out, and that unhealthy cognitive transition, when they get so worried about their own experience that they try to fabricate experiences as much as they can for themselves, but they can't do it, and they give themselves over to sensuality, which ultimately leads to, guess what? Idolatry. ESTPs are extremely weak to idolatry. In idolatry, I know a few idolatrous ESTPs in my time. One of them actually He's addicted to World of Warcraft right now. It's funny. He can't stop playing. It's the most important thing. Or even my mentor, my ESTP mentor, Mr. Bryant. He also was idolatrous with his some of his behaviors. I remember him playing Minecraft all day long when we were supposed to be doing a SharePoint implementation for a customer. This was up in Seattle, Washington. It was a big job. He decided he wanted to play Minecraft the entire time. I was never comfortable with that. I was always trying to get some of the work done, trying to do right by our boss. And he wanted, and he was my supervisor at the time. He just wanted to play Minecraft all day long. And that led to me getting fired from that job. Oh yeah, I was homeless. See, when an ESTP is focused on their own sensuality, it's at the expense of everybody else. If they lack experiences, they should seek out other people and improvise and create new experiences with them. Ultimately, the ESTP is looking for people who have that integrity and so that they can be integral themselves, looking for those loyal people, those true friends, so that they don't find themselves being idolaters, loyal to the wrong things, right? Through their worry, through their ISTJ unconscious. But what does a healthy one look like? What is the healthy version of that? The healthy one gives themselves over to responsibility. See, the unhealthy one is irresponsible because idolatry leads to irresponsibility within the ISTJ unconscious through the unhealthy gateway. But a healthy version, well, it goes even further than that, right? It goes so much further than that. The healthy version of this cognitive transition was like, well, hey, it's my duty to myself to be responsible to myself. It's my duty to myself to learn new things and do things I've never done before, but I would like to do it with other people. Don't forget, folks, guess what? The ISTJ unconscious is interdependent. Why? Because it's affiliative, which means any new experiences it's supposed to be having, it should be sharing with other people through SE Hero. Wait a minute, that's healthy. So as the ISTJ unconscious seeks to grow, the ESTP needs to surround themselves with healthy people to do things that it's looking to do. That could be reading books. That could be volunteer firefighting together. That could be rowing on a lake. That could be developing sports with other people. This is why ESTPs, they get so bored when they're actually watching sporting games. They're like, well, they literally say to themselves, I should be in the game playing right now. Why am I here in the stands? Why do I care? It's another reason why they have a hard time sitting still watching television. They'd rather be in the action instead of watch the action. Because when they watch the action, it causes their SI Nemesis to get uncomfortable and they start feeling like they're doing a bad job. They start feeling like they're being useless. They start feeling like I'm not doing what I should be doing and sharing experiences with other people because that's what real is. That's what makes me happy. That's what makes them happy. Why am I sitting here being worthless? Guys, when you have a negative focused ISTJ unconscious ESTP, they're lazy. They're very lazy, and they give themselves over to idolatry, which laziness in itself is idolatry. Sloth. They get very slothful, and they end up becoming a drain on everyone around them. And they know it, and it leads to this insane depression that these ESTPs end up having. Not cool. But when they're healthy, they end up researching different kinds of experiences that they can have, different things that they can do with other people, and then they start investing time in that way. And then also, they do that research for their TE critic, they gain additional wisdom for themselves, they take on a lot of knowledge on themselves, they end up researching and understanding things specifically so that because I know all of these things, hey, I can then construct great experiences for other people. But if they don't have that, and if they're not worried because they have faith in themselves, they can then use their SE Hero to improvise new experiences based on what's around them in the moment, which ultimately becomes more important instead of forcing themselves to have to plan every little detail about every little thing. It puts too much stress on them to begin with, and they end up being worried, and then they could be at risk of giving themselves over to idolatry and getting stuck in that idolatrous rut instead of being on the path to wisdom and integrity with their INFJ subconscious. They can get stuck here. So a healthy ISTJ unconscious, basically they're becoming that library of Alexandria, that library of knowledge, of healthy experiences that they share with other people and creating memories with other people. And they become a repository of all this information specifically for the purpose of creating. And they do this in such a way which causes them, a byproduct, it causes them to become personally responsible. An ESTP who is personally responsible ends up developing that high level of maturity through the gift of knowledge, because ISTJ unconscious literally is, as the Christians would say, gift of knowledge. And the INFJ subconscious is literally gift of wisdom. And as they develop their happiness and they develop their maturity, they gain both gifts and they're able to confer that upon others, because that gift of knowledge and that gift of wisdom can together in some alchemical process create the ultimate experience that they can deliver on a silver platter to literally anybody. Going beyond that, Gateway 4, the demon function. Oh, you want to play a game? You made the rules. I mean, we're playing by your rules. So I remember Mr. Bryant, my ESTP mentor, constantly telling this ISFJ woman that he picked up off the street. She was this Muslim woman. He wasn't a Muslim. And he had her live in his home with her son because she was poor. She had literally had nothing. And he didn't expect anything in return from her. They weren't even having a sexual relationship, although he was accused of it all the time. He had an extra room. It wasn't even being used. There's literally nothing there. He put her into his home, and they stayed there with his son. And even though he could not stand her son, he had a home because she was literally homeless and had nothing. And it wasn't for a lack of trying either. She constantly was trying to get a job. She was constantly trying to get things figured out. Her son was going to school. And then eventually she was able to get her own place and move out, and it worked out for a while. But he was very giving to her in that situation. But it's funny because I remember Mr. Bryant telling me, he ended up getting into like a verbal altercation with her at one point in time. And he's like, you make the rules. You make the rules. I'm just enforcing the rules that you made. You made your bed. You have to sleep in it. Sorry. And he walked out of the room. And it was his roof anyway. But the point is, it's like, she told him what she wanted. He's like, okay, fine, we'll do what you wanted. And then she's like, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. And it's like, well, you said, sorry, you made that decision. That's not my problem, right? And that's where that comes from. Gateway 4, extrovert intuition demon. You make the rules. You said what you wanted. We did what you wanted. Because here's the thing. ESTPs are aware of their choice with their second gateway. If that choice is taken away, the demon's going to come out, and that's going to be the negative transition into the ENFP superego. The ENFP superego will absolutely burn down whatever future that person has and take it away from them like that, and it's completely gone, vaporized, destroyed. They have no future. Permanent damage, right? It also destroys their reputation. It systematically destroys their relationships with other human beings and their reputation, such that it is impossible for that person to have a future with any other human beings because that person's been like permanently marked. It's kind of like that book, The Scarlet Letter, and it was an ESTP that put that scarlet letter right on Hester, that branded her as a whore within her community that everyone just basically crapped on and whatnot. When the INFP preacher, I think it was Dainsmere or Dinsmore, I forgot his name in the book, even though he was the one that had a child with her, an illegitimate child, he happened to be the preacher of the town. And for the sake of his reputation, he kept her mouth shut. Wow, that's like horrible. And yet she was an INFJ. And an ESTP is the one that branded her, because the ESTP is like, well, you made the rules of this dumb society, and we're going to give you the scarlet letter, so you're permanently marked, right? It's ENFP superego. And a superego-focused ESTP is a very dangerous thing. A lot of them, they're either dead or in jail, and it's because they get into this anarchy. Because remember, ENFP superego is all about chaos. It's all about creating chaos. It literally is anarchy incarnate, like that show, Sons of Anarchy. It's funny that the main character of Sons of Anarchy is an ESTP, but that's another story. Anarchy incarnate, And remember, SPs, if they take control of a society, it becomes an SP society. It literally is anarchy, and it becomes a tribal society. That's where you get the Genghis Khans and those conquerors and whatnot, or gang violence or gangs. That movie Gangs in New York, for example, the leader of the gang was an ESTP. Versus the Leonardo DiCaprio INFJ, for example, Gangs in New York. But it's gang life, and gang life is ENFP superego focused ESTP. It's gang life. It's all about gang life to the ESTP. And there is no such thing as knowledge or wisdom in that regard, because they're doing the absolute expedient thing. I'm the alpha, I have my gang, and that's it. And we rule, and how we rule is just how we rule, and there is nothing that anyone can do to stop us. And and I'm in charge, and I'm going to test the strength of everyone around me. And if anyone's weak, well, they lose their life. They have no future if they're weak. That's literally ENFP superego. Not exactly fun. But what happens when ENFP superego becomes angelic and they transition healthfully into the superego? Well, that's not going to happen, because they need all the wisdom in the world and all the knowledge in the world in order to actually make that happen. And then at that point, the ENFP works hard for the future of other people and proper thinking of other people, such that they create anarchy to tear down the society around them. Like, for example, Samuel Adams, an ESTP who run the Sons of Liberty. A terrorist group working against King George, the Britons, the Redcoats during the American Revolution, and commissioned by Benjamin Franklin. Yeah. See, Samuel Adams and the Sons of Liberty, they did the Boston Tea Party. They were involved with the Boston Massacre. They helped start the American Revolution. And it's because that ENFP superego became angelic, and he was working to the better future of his fellow colonists. And he created a terrorist group as a result, the Sons of Liberty. And that's a great example of an angelic ENFP outlook for that cognitive transition. That's where it comes from. So remember, folks, how do you get that healthy? The ESTP always needs to have a choice. The ESTP needs to have a developed subconscious, have that gift of wisdom and that gift of knowledge from ISTJ unconscious, such that they combine together in this alchemical process to create a literal mental philosopher's stone within the mind, such that they're able to transmute the demon into an angel within their superego, so that they can work for a better future, and using the tools of anarchy to do it, right? And as a result, everybody then has a better future and a better present as a result of the direct work of the ESTP, living in the moment, getting shit done, even like in a revolutionary setting. It's a very revolutionary approach. So anyway, I think that about covers it. So if you like what you saw, please go to csjoseph.life/social, click on YouTube, subscribe, like us, hit the bell. Join our Discord server so you can get in on the Q&As for live streams and whatnot. Become a patron and financially contribute to our little movement that we have going here at CSJ, to be able to provide additional premium content. This content is made available through email, folks. Thank you all for being email subscribers. We really appreciate everyone, and we're trying very hard not to spam you. But hey, if you do get spam from us, at least you know that there's a lecture coming every now and then. We're hoping to get 2 of these released per month. So look forward to having more of those available for season 22. And thank you very much, folks, for watching and being members of our audience. With that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Have a good night.